barely just had some words, man, and he put me in handcuffs, dragged me off camera, and rammed my face into the bunk, man, probably about 8 times, knocked out my front teeth, bust my head open. Drove me forward, ran my head into the shower some more, took me to the ground and beat me while I was cuffed and couldn't do nothing, you know. Big old guy, about 280 pounds, you know. I thought he was gonna kill me in there for real, bro.
So he cuffs you and he's just ramming you into the bed.
Yeah, ramming my face into the bunk, man. And I mean, we barely had work.
So Josh, you end up getting into it with the cops, right? And they pretty much knock your teeth out, beat the brakes off you. What happens? Why do the federal prison officers end up jumping on you?
So really, man, it was over a little of nothing. You know, I did 20 years. I did 11 and a half years in the state in Texas, you know. And over there, it's a lot different. You know, you kind of get into it with the officers and, you know, go back and forth. You know, you don't have to worry about, you know, just getting fucked up, you know. And so when I went to the feds, you know, I started off at Pollock Medium, but ended up going all the way down to the camp and steadily caught with cell phones and this and that. So I ended up back at the up at the USP at McCreary. And actually, man, I was just in the shoe and got into it with this one officer. And I can't say the name right now because some stuff going on with it, you know what I mean? But barely just had some words, man, and he put me in handcuffs, dragged me off camera, and rammed my face into the bunk, man, probably about 8 times, knocked out my front teeth, bust my head open, drove me forward, ran my head into the shower some more, took me to the ground and beat me while I was cuffed and couldn't do nothing, you know. Big old guy, about 280 pounds, you know. I thought he was gonna kill me in there for real, bro.
So he cuffs you and he's just ramming you into the bed.
Yeah, ramming my face into the bunk, man. And I mean, we barely had work. He was trying to when he was transporting me to another cell at first, right? You know what I mean? And then when he was transporting me, he went to twisting my cuffs. He was looking for a problem. You know, you're familiar with it, bro. You seen how a lot of them are. There's a real problem with abuse of power in the BOP with correctional officers, period. I ain't trying to say that they're all bad, but you know, there's a book about it. It's called The Lucifer Effect, about the Stanford Prison Project. You know, I don't know if you heard of that, but where they split up, it was civilians, 30 of them. They split up 15 and 15. Half were the COs, the other half were the inmates. Okay, so like I was saying, there's a real problem with abuse of power with COs. You know, that I was talking about the book that was written about it, The Lucifer Effect. It was a professor at Stanford who did this experiment, and it was civilians, you know, split up, about 30 people, split up 15 and 15. And he was the warden, and it slowly but surely just got so out of control. I mean, one guy got almost suicidal. People was losing faith in humanity, and it's crazy. I know you've seen it in there, Chad. You know, it'll start gradually, you know, this abuse of power, and it gets so sickening that people, you know, around other officers who, you know, might be decent guys claim to, get to where they just turn a blind eye to it, you know. And the experiment had to end up being called off because the professor's wife come up there and she was like, who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? You're letting this go on because, you know, the COs were treating the inmates so bad. But anyways, there's a real problem with that. And I'll say it on here. So with what happened to me, I didn't set out to press charges or anything like that. You know, I don't ever want nothing like that on me. But that I was contacted and it was I was notified that there's going to be a big conspiracy coming out of McCreary with people, with the officers getting locked up because of exactly what happened to me and many, many others. I'm talking about like 30 or 40 inmates that these officers are just going up there, riling the inmates up, trying to get them to, argue with them or anything, and just beating the fuck out of them.
Let's talk a little bit about McCreary, right? Kind of violent prison. I think you might have been over there with Adam. What was the violence like, besides the cops jumping on prisoners? What was the violence like on an everyday basis at USP McCreary?
Okay, yeah, I wasn't there with Adam. I was at USP Lee with Adam. He had the yard over there. But man, yeah, McCreary was definitely worse than USP Lee. It is extreme. It's an extremely violent place. I mean, it's crazy. You've been in the USPs, and I'm sure you can relate to just how it desensitizes you to violence for sure. You're on lockdown for weeks, and all you want to do is make a phone call, but some guys have come in with messed up charges while you're on lockdown. So, you might be on the phone with your wife trying to find out how the kids are doing while somebody's getting butchered over here. And if they're in there for messing with kids or something, a lot of times it's deserved, but still seeing a human being get, just something that long ran up in them, it's not normal. You know what I mean? It's something that has an effect on you for sure.
You said it has an effect on you. What's one of the worst things that you've seen in federal prison, whether it was a USP, an FCI? What was one of the worst things that you've seen?
Okay, look, let me tell you this one. So when I was on my way to USP McCreary, right, there was a guy that was on Con Air with us, and he's talking all this tough shit, how he's going to get here and turn up, and how he's one of them ones that pushes that steel and all this and that. And I'm just like, when you're in a place like that, if you're a stand-up guy, you got to do whatever it takes to survive. Sometimes when people are doing all that, they're doing something to cover it up. Guys who are about their business don't have to announce it. So I was kind of like, man, this guy is, kind of weird with all that. Even real gangsters don't want to look for trouble. You know what I mean? But anyway, so I got my eye on this guy. There was another dude sitting next to him who's like, man, I can't wait to get over here, just get my work out the way so I can sit back and tattoo. Well, they end up getting real cool. When we get there, it's still COVID stuff, so we had to be in a quarantine dorm for a week or so. When we come out, the guy that was talking all the shit and the guy that just wanted to put his work in and sit back and tattoo, they're going to the same dorm with me. When they put them in, assign us our cells, they put them two in the cell together. They high five, hell yeah, we're gonna be in the cell together, all this and that, right? And so they're in there, and I'm used to whenever I go somewhere, I'm used to the care package and a warm welcome. I'm a good dude. My paperwork straight all the way around, But I could tell and we had a stiff car of white dudes over there, like 30, like strong, It was weird. The dorm I fell in, it had I'm talking about maybe a handful of Mexican guys. The rest was white and black. So we had a real big car, And the white guys are kind of standoffish of us, I could sense that there wasn't, the warm welcome, right? So I'm wondering what's up with that. Well, the guy that wanted a tattoo goes and tells the speaker, hey, look, man, I'm trying to get my work out the way as soon as possible, And so that was said. And then, it's a couple of days. Them two are kicking it every day, eating, doing their thing together, working out together. Well, about 3 days later, they come and pull me and the guy that was, his name was Tattoo. They say, hey, you were saying that you want to get your work out the way. Well, we got you. He's like, who? He said, you're silly. The dude, he just met, they become best buddies, you know what I mean? And they put one of them things in his hand, you know what I mean? And he's like, well, are you sure? They're like, yeah, y'all probably see we've been acting a little different. They let us know something was messed up with him, but we couldn't figure it out because it was something he did in the state. And so they told I was already kind of getting short, getting close to going home. They say, hey Josh, if you could just go stand by the officer's office, and if he gets loose or something and goes that way, make sure he don't go in there. And told him catch him while he's on the computer. And boy, he ran that thing through him so many times, bro.
Let me ask you this, right? So these two
about something like that,
these two end up becoming buddies. Whatever, he did something in the state. What did he do in the state that that merited them pretty much just stabbing the shit out of him?
It was a rape case. He had a rape from the state. I believe it was on an underage girl. I can't quote for sure. I know it was a sexual assault though.
So this dude starts putting in the work on him. How much time does Tattoo have?
Man, only like 8 or 9 years, man, for real.
So he's got 8 or 9 years. He's putting that steel in this dude that he was eating with, hanging out with, his best buddy.
Yeah.
And over there with the white car, what happens if he refused and was like, nah, man, that's my dude, man. I ain't doing that.
You don't want to find that out. Especially you say you want to put that work in, and then, you try to back out, you might become the work. You already know that, Bubba.
What happens in your mind when you see this guy being brutalized? I mean, no matter what he did in the past or whatever, does it affect you to watch this violence, to see this level of violence?
Well, I come from I grew up seeing a lot of violence. To be honest, when it's somebody that got something like that, it don't bother me that much, but that bothers me a little bit. You know what I mean? When it kind of messes you up when it becomes so normal to you. You know what I mean? I definitely agree with it when it's, crimes against kids and women, for sure, so, but yeah, just what bothers me is how a lot of times this is off the officer's word and stuff like that. I'll tell you, if you don't mind, what really bothers me, like I seen a guy killed at Pollock over owing money for a drug debt. That's really what bothers me right there. A guy that always paid his bills and stuff like that, and then one car was complaining about him not paying when he said, and so he kind of got an attitude about it because he always pays. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm gonna pay you. I'm not paying right now. Fuck you and anybody who don't like it, and then that's what he shouldn't have done, because he said, and I got that thing ready for anybody who don't like it. When he made the reference to the weapon, actually what he didn't know is we was just on the rec yard politicking with him. We had about 30 guys pull up on us talking about, hey, if your guy don't pay, we're going to kick it. We're going to do something to him. We let him know, no, you ain't going to touch him, but whenever we go in and let him know, like, hey, you need to take care of dude, he tells us, well, I ain't got, fuck him. He's making a big issue about it. I'm not going to pay him, and fuck him and anybody who don't like it. And I got my shit ready. Well, when he said that, one of our guys stepped up and hit him with a lock one time, bro. One time. And that was it.
So he hits him with a lock and pretty much unalives this dude.
Actually, the dude fought and everything for a minute, you know what I mean? But when they went back to the shoot, he fell out and never woke up, bro. And that right there has always bothered me, because you think of all the things you could have done. I wish I'd have just beat him up or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's sad that, a 20-something-year-old lost his life just because of a misunderstanding. He was someone that he would have paid that guy, just not when the guy wanted, and he felt like everybody knows I pay my bills, F this guy.
And this happened at an FCI, medium security prison?
Yes, sir. Pollock Medium.
Let's talk about Pollock Medium, right? I mean, I know they made you wear one-piece suits at one time. I don't know if it was still that way when you were there, but that's also a pretty it was a pretty dangerous prison for an FCI, right? A lot of violence there too.
Yeah, not as much stabbings as the USP, but definitely a whole lot of politicking and yeah, yeah, I got into a number of altercations over there myself for sure. We got into it with another group in the bathroom right there on the rec yard. And
let's talk about that. Who'd you get into it with?
So we ended up ironing things out. It was another white group. I'd rather leave the name out of it, you know what I mean? Because I got a lot of them I mess with out here now, you know what I mean? I don't want to be like I'm bragging about because we won, you know what I mean? And so I don't want to seem like I'm gloating about it. But it was another white group that was saying that the tattoo this young kid had, he was a 20-something-year-old, and he come in with a tattoo right here, and they were saying it looked like their stamp, and they're like, if he don't cover that up, we're gonna bounce him off the yard. And I had just got there from TEC, and our speaker was kind of real passive, and I seen him talking to this kid, and I pulled up, I seen they were distraught, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, these dudes talking about they're gonna bounce him off the yard. And I said, how long this been going on? And he said, about 2 weeks. I said, well, what you gonna do? Wait till they just send 2 guys to hit him? Like, why are you not bringing this out? I said, man, everybody be on the rec yard first move, man. And I went to breakfast. This was at Pilcaw in the morning when I seen them. I went straight to breakfast. I said, man, everybody on the rec yard next move. And I told their guys too. And I walked up with our speaker and was like, hey, man, what are y'all talking about with this? And they're like, who the fuck are you? You just rolled up, man. That ain't how this works, And I said, this is how it's gonna work, man. This been going on for 2 weeks and he ain't let us know. You can talk to him with me right here. You can talk to me, bro. I'm the one told everybody come out here. And I said, and for one thing, look, let's tone it down a little bit, talk to each other with some respect, so this goes right. Cause I'm talking to you respectfully, and I'm gonna ask you to please get off this issue. I'm gonna swallow my pride and ask you to please get off this issue because it's some bullshit. That tattoo don't look like y'all shit. And I guess whenever we don't have a common enemy, you want to turn on each other. We were just on the rec yard doing burpees and playing honky ball together the other day, playing full court basketball, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what we call it. Let's go, none of us were very good. We'll go out there and get some cardio though, running up and down the court. But we're out there kicking and everything's good. And then I didn't even know this shit was going on. So anyways, they got on that hardcore shit. No, this is what it is. And I said, all right, well, hold on a sec. I went over there and I told the youngster, I said, man, go over there and tell the captain you want to look at him. He's the one stirring this shit up. Tell him you want to look at him. And, and if anybody jumps, I'm jumping, And what's crazy is, man, I had my old school friend, Terry Hugel, salute to him, man. He was there at Pollock before I got there. I've known him since I was a kid. He actually raised me for real. He was my girlfriend at the time. It's her stepdad. And but he had been there a long time, man. And he was staying out the way, bro. Poor guy. When I got there, man, I got him all in the mix. So he's right there. And a couple of us the youngster goes over there and tells the captain, hey, man, you keep stirring this shit up, man. If you ain't gonna get off of it, I want to look at you. And he said, you ain't my equal, and he tries to tell his lieutenant, you look at him, And I said, I took my shirt off. I said, it ain't going like that. And the lieutenant says, we're such and such. We don't duck no red, tells the dude to his captain, man, hit the bathroom with him. So they hit the bathroom. I let our speaker's about to be, we're about to tell him sit down somewhere because he ain't, but I still let him go in the bathroom to hold the fight down. I got the door though. And the youngster starts getting on his ass, And when he does, the lieutenant jumps in. I see him about to go, so I fly in there and jump on him. And man, I'm getting with him, and somebody catches me from behind with, man, a good one. I mean, I seen stars and all that, but luckily it didn't leave me dazed. I turn around and he had that look on his face like, oh shit, I just hit this guy with everything. And man, I got a good one on him, knocked him out. And yeah, we end up, doing our thing in there. And next thing you know, you hear all the Mexicans and blacks off the rec yard, all whites up against the fence. And I don't know how I made it, bro, because I had a good shot. I come out the bathroom, I had a lot of blood on my shirt, and I take it off to throw it in the trash. And there was this cool ass black dude, man, that was walking by. He threw me a shirt. I put it on. Someone gave me some glasses, and we go line up against the fence. Well, all the ones that lost, they automatically get locked up because they see they've been in a fight. I had a good ass shiner, but when the cop come asked me to remove the glasses, I just blatantly did like this. I turned this way and take the glasses off, and he kept going. And so yeah, we skated by on that, but they end up letting them all out the shoe, and everything was just squashed after that. Actually, they tried to the captain at the time, their captain at the time tried to keep it going, but it come down from the higher ups. I'm actually cool with one of their dudes that was, above him, that's from my area, and they shot word like, hey man, you're tripping over there. They demoted that captain and put somebody else in his place, and we were all cool after that.
Things can definitely get out of control though, right?
Oh, most definitely. In a heartbeat. I loved being there after 11 and a half years in TDC, bro, where it's just trash. Very little movement. You almost never get wrecked. Pollock Medium is what they call like a sweet yard. Doing time sucks, period. But where the place is sweet. If the food's good, the guards don't mess with you. They got a good rec yard. They're running rec regular. The rec yard was open all day over there, bro. The yard wasn't split. So my guy was across the compound. My boy Terry Hugo, I told you about. We'd be on that rec yard all day. It's a sweet spot. A lot of freedom coming from TDC. So like 1 minute I'm just, going to get my medication.
So let me ask you this though about Texas, right? Texas State Prison, federal prison. You talked a little bit about the conditions in Texas, but you got a little more freedom over here. What was the violence like when you were in that Texas system?
It's a lot, bro. It's a lot, but you've done time in the USP. Compared to that, it's nothing because it's just a bunch of knuckling up. It's just a bunch of boxing, basically. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's been some stabbings, at places I've been in the state, but I mean, very rare unless there's a riot or unless somebody really has that coming. If they've done something really fucked up. But if you're just getting into it with somebody, you ain't got to worry about nothing like that. It's bumps and bruises and cuts,
So not too much stabbing over there in Texas.
Nah.
Who runs that Texas state prison system as far as prisoners go in gangs, white gangs?
Man, though, I mean, there's always going to be way more woods than anything else. Just it's the same thing as independence over there. You know what I mean? They lock up all the STGs. If they come in patched up, they're gonna be going to. I think since I've left, I think they may be letting them come out to population, because if you think about it, how dumb is it to say somebody's too dangerous to be in population in prison? So you put this person in a box for 5, 10, 15 years and then let them out to society. What sense does that make? You know what I mean?
I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. Let's get back to federal prison, though, right? You end up leaving McCreary, right? Why do you leave McCreary? Over the cop?
Yeah, so the cop lied and said that I tried to assault him. Okay, so I was about to come home, bro. I had my halfway house date. I was jamming up a guy that owed me money at McCreary and tell him, hey man, you need to pay me before I go home, cause I was helping him get on his feet when he was doing bad. You know, the guys make candy and stuff like that. Well, I got, just got a bunch of stuff for his hustle and just trying to help him out. Well, what pissed me off was he told me go to the rec yard. He'd have my stamps for me. It's freezing cold that night, and you know how they do you, bro. When it's summer and you want to be out there for some hours, they run you in and out in an hour, no more. But it was winter. They left us out there about 3-4 hours that night, and he didn't even show up. So the next day at lunch, I checked him, and I checked him in front of his car, you know, and so they told him to clean it up. Next day at lunch, he stole off on me while I was eating my burger, taking a bite out of my burger, and I went to beating his ass and got a fire extinguisher, one of them fire extinguishers full of mace on me, and went to the shoot. And while I was back there, that's when I had the altercation with the officer. And yeah, so the officer ended up saying that I tried to headbutt him when he took me into the cell, and that was just stupid. You know what I mean? I still probably my halfway house might have been delayed from the original fight, but I was still gonna go home. And so basically he ended up making me do another year. By the time I got put in, I had to, do the shoe time for it, get transferred, and be put back in for halfway house. They wasn't giving as much halfway house at USP Lee as I was going to get at McCreary. And so end up coming home from USP Lee.
So how much time do you actually end up losing? You're supposed to go home, got your halfway house date. How much time do you lose?
Okay, so I had the one fight, and then they hit me with the assault on an officer and something else I can't remember. I lost like 90 days, something like that, and then yeah, it was just a whole process of getting put back in. They were real lazy at USP Lee as far as getting you put in to leave and all that. So I got the minimum halfway house time, and ended up costing me about another year in prison basically. And it was all off of this asshole coming to work. I guess his wife don't let him hold the remote at home or whatever it is, and people bring their problems to work, and that's what there was so many of them up there in McCreary, and I mean I seen it at USP Lee too. You know what I mean? There's a lot of them that just come up there and want to take their problems out on inmates. This same guy, he was steady doing it. When people come back there and get stripped out, just getting put in the shoe, and I'm talking about good dudes. That's what's crazy. They're supposed to treat the pieces of shit messed up. That's understood. But they'll have dudes coming back there for a fight and be trying to provoke them. You know what I mean? When they're doing the search, I'd hear this motherfucker, spread your fucking ass, yelling in his ear, like trying to emasculate a man, you know what I mean? Trying to get them to stud up so all of them can beat the shit out of them. And they had a room over there, bro, that just like the room they put me in after he beat my ass. So they beat my ass, took me to another, like a multi-purpose room, put my face on a mat that had mace caked up on it. My blood's going down and like mixing with the mace, and it's all in my eyes and all that. And they strip you down and put you in a fucking woman's thong, bro. Have you seen those with the paper suit? And that
Not the thongs. I've seen the paper suits, but not the thongs.
Bro, this shit should be so illegal, bro. There's no reason for this thing. You'd rather not wear nothing, bro. I'd rather be butt naked in front of everybody than wear this thing. They got a woman's thong, bro. It's nothing. It can be explained as nothing other than that. There's no reason to put it on. It's exactly a woman's thong, and they'll put that thing. They had me cuffed and everything. They put that shit on me, put me in the hard ambulatory restraints. Man, I couldn't see straight, bro. I was scared to death, bro, because I was thinking back to that guy that got hit with that one lock, and got hit with the lock one time in Pollock, bro. I was worried about what type of head damage I took, 'cause I couldn't see straight, bro. And I couldn't remember what we had for lunch an hour ago.
So you probably ended up with a concussion for real, at the very least.
Yeah, most definitely. And I've had problems with memory and stuff since then, It's yeah, he damn near killed me in there, bro. Damn well could have.
Man, I mean, when this is going on, are you thinking about your family? Like, man, I might never see my family again. Does any of that enter your mind?
Yeah, most definitely. And then what occurred after that was every letter I wrote my family, like trying to tell them what happened, they wouldn't let me use the phone, even though I was allowed to use the phone. All my letters that I tried to write my wife, trying to tell her, hey, you need to bring attention to this. They're trying to keep me from going home. They threw every one of them letters away. When I finally was in the cell with somebody else that was allowed to use the phone, they helped me get a call to my wife. And I'm like, have you been getting my letters? She's like, no. One of your friends called me from population and told me, something bad happened to you back there, but I don't know anything. And it was like a couple months later after this happened, bro. So when I had the first fight I told you about, I hurt my hand. I went, sick calls on Wednesdays. I went back there to the shoe after sick call had been ran, because it's after lunch. The very next day, they pull me out, x-ray me, look at my hand, give me ibuprofen and all this stuff, take care of me. After the officer beat me, medical wouldn't see me for 3 months, bro. They hid me back there to heal up, bro. So there was no documentation of this ass whooping.
So pretty much the nurses, everybody's involved in this cover-up. No one really cares. Like, hey, let's protect each other.
Exactly. Yes, sir. It's definitely a buddy system in there.
Recently we've seen a bunch of people get arrested in New York where they beat the kid up, killed him. Now they beat up another kid, killed that kid. And now all the covering up, they're offering people 15 years, 20 years for these cops. And now they're going to prison. There's starting to become some accountability, at least in New York State. But, they're going to start doing this shit in the feds too, I think, where they're going to stop doing all the covering up and people are going to start going to jail. And when people start getting arrested and the shit starts getting serious, them cops are going to start being like, it wasn't me. It was C.O. Smith that beat on that dude. You think that's what's going to end up happening eventually?
Yeah, most definitely, because it also, there's going to be the ones that are just there but are trying to keep quiet, you know what I mean? Like they're going to be a part of it too. So they could either, and you know how it is with, I ain't with any telling or anything like that. This is different, bro. Like these are human beings, bro. You know what I mean? I'm glad to see somebody like that go to prison because this is somebody that's already away from their family. You got so many people that this is happening to system wide. These are people that are just trying to do their time and go home, or even worse, some that ain't never going home and aren't able to bring any type of attention to it because they don't have any family. You know what I mean? So, there needs to be something done about it because, just because somebody's in prison doesn't mean that, they're complete pieces of shit and deserve to be treated, beat like a animal, you know what I mean? And there's so many instances of it. That's why, I'm already putting it out there on here. I can't say no names because there's gonna be a case coming out of McCreary about this right here. I can't let that be known. They already know, but there's gonna be several officers arrested for this right here. Is gonna be like a conspiracy case.
They're pretty much grand jury already met and everything on these dudes. They're just waiting now to probably pretty much go arrest them, round them up, charge them, and take them over to federal court.
It'll be coming to a head real soon, yes, sir. And like I said, I ain't even have nothing with, they went to doing a lot of shit and running back cameras and stuff like that. So somebody reached out to me and just let me know that, justice will be served for the one that did it to me. Cause he's done a lot of shit to other inmates too. That was his little MO, coming to work every day and, you know, if not every day, very often, fucking inmates up. Matter of fact, the day before he did it to me, he did it to another inmate. And the only reason he'd come out the restraint room was because I was going in. They had that guy in there chained to the bed, pissing and shitting on himself for 24 hours.
Man, wild things happen in there, right?
Yes, sir, for sure. And one thing I'd really like to talk about, man, is it makes you realize how precious life is. So I grew up pretty rough, man. I started hustling around 13, 14, man. I mean, might have started off with taking little pinners to school or whatever to my friends. And, I grew up poor. So once I learned, I got into doing drugs. I got into, trying to make money off of it because my grandma was the only one working at the house in the house at the time. We had my mom, my dad, my uncles, my brothers, so once as soon as I figured out how to make money, it made me feel good to be able to put food on the table sometimes and get my own shit, get my own shoes, get my own clothes or whatever. But that led me to much harder stuff really soon, and ended up getting into meth real bad. I ended up shooting meth. Like I just really went down a wrong path. And I when I was 16, I ended up getting a case where me and these guys showed up to both rob each other, but I was a kid and they was older and thought they were gonna strong arm me, but I had a little 22 and I shot both of them. And it ended up being kind of like a self-defense case, but they offered me probation. They're like, we see that it's more than what they said, because at first they just said I just come up and robbed them and didn't admit to what they were doing over there and all that. But anyways, I ended up getting probation. And after 15 months in Dallas County Jail, which is really a rough spot, you know what I mean? As a 17-year-old anyways, especially. But so I ended up getting probation for that, violating that, going and doing 2 years in TDC and coming out. And so I did a couple little bids, man, but not enough to really open my eyes to the fact that you will lose your life in this game, you know? And so whenever I got caught on this last bid in 2004, I got caught with little everything: ice, ecstasy, acid, Xanax bars, Valiums, and cocaine and all this stuff, 2 guns and a bulletproof vest. And they ended up giving me 15 in the state and 9 in the Fed stat, And man, this bid, I changed my life, bro. I really changed my life. My family went through a lot while I was locked up. I lost a lot of people, and it made me gain an appreciation for life, and especially seeing like all the violence in there. It makes you really, like, when you're young, man. And I didn't have no authentic man in my life, nobody to show me a trade, or or maybe I just wasn't interested at the point when I did. I look back and see maybe that wasn't always true, but by that time I was already deep in the game and wasn't interested in working a job for 500-600 a week, But as a young man, I didn't have no authentic, man, to show someone who knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way, And so I grew up in prison. I took a lot of trades. I educated myself. I realized that, I always did bad in school because I had a lot of problems at home, and my mind would stay on that type of stuff, and then I'd go to school, and it was just, problems at home. So couldn't focus in school, doing bad in school. So more problems at home, and, just was real troubled as a youngster. But in prison, I really started working on myself and changed completely, and, realized that I can be a good man, that I could come out here and be successful. And soon as I hit the halfway house, brother, I was working the next week, and I worked a little shitty. Well, actually, I appreciate the opportunity my guy gave me. A friend gave me a job doing construction, but a lot of times I had to Uber to work and back. So that's $60. Lunch is $80. I was making $120. I mean, lunch is $20, so that's $80. I was making about $120 a day. So some days I'd come away with 40, $50 in my pocket, but I was getting out the halfway house, which you ain't doing if you don't get a job, so it was a step up. Then I got a better job. Then I got my CDL, started driving trucks, and started making, 15 to 1700 a week, working a lot of hours. And, but now I've quit that job and I'm starting a personal training business. I got certified as a personal trainer and getting that off the ground. And just, I've been able to provide for my family and be a good man since I've been home. And, a lot of my friends who, how, I wasn't always doing right in prison. I was striving to get ready to come home, but a lot of times I hustled in there. I got caught with cell phones 5 different times. That's what ended me up from, I made it to the camp at one point, got an escape case from there, got a new charge, end up, going to the low, getting caught with cell phones there, at Beaumont Low. Also, was shipped for suspicion of introduction, and then went to Beaumont Medium. I got caught with 2 cell phones there, and that's what ended me up at USP McCreary. But especially this last couple years at the USP, when I'm really getting close to coming home, I had to really think about what type of man I want to be when I come home. And, I commend you on all the positive stuff you do, putting the word out there. And, I want to help the addicts. I want to help the youth. I want to help all the people who are going down them roads that we done been down, bro, and let them know ain't nothing good down there, And I'm doing it, bro, and it feels real good, bro. Life's been beautiful since I've been home. I don't do anything I have to look over my shoulder for, and just have a lot of peace and blessings in my life, better than I ever imagined it being.
Let me ask you this, right? What was the one thing while you were in prison that you missed the most?
Man, my daughter, bro, she was 2 when I left. She was 2 when I left, and that, man, bro, it gets me kind of emotional because she was so precious. That was my little partner, and I had her when I started doing good for a little bit, but ended up falling back into the game. And she's 23 when I come home, and but bro, we're like this. When we hang out, you wouldn't know that we ever spend a day apart. She makes time for me. She's proud of me, But also the last 3 years before coming home, my wife, man, I met an amazing woman. My wife, Melissa, shout out to her. She just held me down through all that I just spoke about. Them shoe bids, getting caught, every shoe bid for getting caught with the phones and stuff. Stuff I went through with getting beat while I was in the shoe at McCreary. Like, she was just my little soldier. If I went to the shoot, most of the time if I was in population, I was able to, talk to her all the time, video chatting and all that. But, if I was in the shoe, I know within 3 days, there's going to be a letter there, and she just held me down like no other. She moved from Houston to Corsicana here over close by my people. And so I could be by my family when I come home, and just was really selfless, and through the whole relationship. She's, she has, we're raising these kids together, and just, man. So when we got together, and then of course my mom and my brothers, and all of that, just my family, really, brother.
So now you're out here living your best life, man, beyond what you could have imagined, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
How'd it feel when you walked out after 19 years straight in prison? How'd it feel to just walk out and be free?
Man, bro, amazing. So check it out. The night I was supposed to get out, I was supposed to get released at 10 o'clock. You're supposed to, So my wife met me at the bus stop in Virginia. She drove 14 hours to pick me up from the bus stop. You know, we've split the ride driving. So yeah, I'm driving 14 hours back. She drove half the way. I drove half the way. Went and met my brothers, my mom. Um, Shout out to my mom, man. She's just so awesome. During a lot of my incarceration, she was caught in addiction, man, and abusive relationships and stuff like that. And she got away from all that, and she's living her best life now. So my mom was right there. A lot of times in visits, she'd come up there looking so bad. I was scared to death she wouldn't make it till I got home. But she's living clean and sober now. She was there. My brothers, my daughter pulled up. And we had breakfast and we went and rode go-karts and all that and went shopping before I went to the halfway house. And man, it was just so surreal, bro. It felt like a amazing dream, bro. And honestly, there's nothing like that first day out, but I still feel the same way every day, you know. Um, it's just, life throws problems and, obstacles at you, but you just gotta, I still have that, that thing that people have when they first get out, to where you just have that wonderment. Everything is new to you again. And I don't want to lose that, that appreciation, that gratitude for what I have again,
100%, man. Listen, before we get ready to go, right? There's a lot of dudes on the wrong path. In the beginning when we started this, it was to save kids from life imprisonment, premature death in the streets. But a lot of dudes that have been in prison and been through the shit that we've been through, they tune in, man. They say, hey, look, man, it's therapeutic, man. I appreciate you. What message would you give to them dudes, man, that are stuck behind the wall, or them young dudes on the wrong path?
So check it out, bro. I promise you, if I can do it, you can do it. There is nothing. Look, the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary, bro. If you're trying to take shortcuts with crime, with drugs, with anything like that, it's just never gonna work out. The feds will take your shit, man. Everything you acquire, in the 50th law that 50 Cent did with Robert Greene, the author of 48 Laws of Power, he talks about how, a lot of people, you might make $100,000 in 6 months, doing the wrong thing. Most people don't, but say you do, it's a lot of money. It'll make you think, oh, I'd like to do that. But, you're very likely to get caught, shortly after that and go get sit down for 10, 15 years. You could have made that working at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, anywhere, for 10 years and been home with your family, not missed out on funerals, birthdays, Christmases, all that. Man, trust me when I tell you it ain't worth it. It's worth it to, value yourself, your family, and if you believe that I do, man, Jesus Christ is the truth and he's the way, man, for real. He was, when I was in prison, people say, you don't realize he's all that you need to, he's all that you have. And, I know I still got a problem with my mouth, cussing and stuff like that. I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be, but one thing I know is he was there for me when nobody else was, and he's restored everything in my life. He's helped me overcome addiction. He's answered prayers of, I was praying for my loved ones to overcome addiction. And man, it's real, and there's guys like Chad, like myself. If you're going through it, man, reach out, because we have a passion to help those who are going through the struggle.
Well, listen, Josh, I definitely appreciate you coming on, man. You've been in some dark places in prison, but you made it through. Now you're free. You got a wonderful woman in your life. Got to reunite with your mother and your family, man. Just tell people, man, if they like what we're doing, man, and you like what this dude did, know that you can turn your life around. Blood on the Razor Wire TV with respect. Until tomorrow, we're out.